Hello and welcome to my studio. My name is Josephine. If you don't know me, I'm a pattern designer. I run the pattern brand Plum Patterns. And I also work in the fashion industry as a garment technician and production manager. So I have been to a lot of factory visits. I worked with production for quite a lot of years now. And I have done a lot of fittings for the brand I work for, but also for my own patterns and for everything I made for myself and for others. If you hear some sounds, it's my daughter. I'm alone here with her and trying to film, so excuse the noise. Last week I sent out a survey asking you what you want to learn, and an overwhelming amount of people said they want to learn how to fit better, how to create a better fit for the garments you're making. And I totally understand that, because how annoying and discouraging is it to spend so much time learning to sew? Maybe we even went into sewing because ready to wear doesn't fit the way we want to. And then we discover, we learn to sew, everything is nice, we learn how to use a sewing machine, and the garments we make still don't fit. And you put so much love and effort into creating something by yourself, and then it doesn't fit. So this is one of the most important things to learn when you want to make your own clothes. And it's not that easy. I'm gonna be honest about that. It's not the most easy part, but it also doesn't have to be a necessary evil. Like, I see so many people online not wanting to fit things. Like, they see making a toile or a muslin as a necessary evil and not part of a fun process. So I want to invite you to reframe your thinking and start thinking about the fitting process as a part of a fun process. And to learn how to fit can actually be fun, and you can enjoy it along the way. Sewing is a journey, and learning how to fit is a journey. And if we can have fun along the way and enjoy the process of learning and evolving, I think we're gonna be a lot more happy. So maybe when you feel discouraged because you started sewing to make things that fit you and now they don't fit, maybe you stop sewing entirely for a period of time. I have heard many people that happens to. That was what I did in the beginning when I didn't know how to make something fit. I just quit for a while, but I still always came back because sewing is so much fun. And it takes some time to learn how to fit and get to know your body. And it's also a matter of preference, and that's something we're going to talk about today. It's not only, there's no one size fits all in fitting, pun intended. It's also down to preference. So how much ease do you like to have in a garment? How do you like something to fit? It's not going to be the same for everyone. And that's why this is such an individual journey that you have to go on. One other problem you can come across is you have been sewing for a while, and when you make a toile or a muslin, you see something that doesn't fit, but you don't know how to fix it. So this is a blessing and a curse. It means you have come somewhere on your journey, and you know there's a fit problem, but you can't really identify what a fit problem is and how to fix it. Today we're going to focus on measurements, how to take your measurements, how to make them accurate, and we're going to talk about ease. So there's design ease and wearing ease that I'm going to discuss with you today. And we're also going to talk about how to choose the correct starting point size. So which size to choose as a starting point. So we are going to take the 3 most common measurements today, and that's bust, waist and hip or seat. So to start, we're going to take the bust, and you want the measuring tape not too loose and not too tight, and always parallel to the floor. So you can use a mirror and look at how the measuring tape looks from the side and from the front. You want it to be around the height of your nipples or where your bust is most rounded. And then we move down to the waist. The waist can be a bit more tricky than the bust to find where you should measure. It's usually, but not always, the smallest part of your body. So it can also be easier to fold over a bit like this. You lean to one side, and where your body kind of folds, that's where the waist is. It's usually a bit above the belly button or around the belly button. Take your measurement and write it down, and make sure you are not sucking in or the measuring tape is like pulling into your skin. You should be able to take a breath while you're measuring, because you're gonna breathe in your clothes. Fun fact. And then we're gonna take the seat measurement. So the seat is quite a bit below the waist, and I'm not talking about the hips where your hip bones are. I'm talking about your butt where it's most rounded. So this is usually, but not always, the largest part. Sometimes it's not your largest part, and that's okay. Everyone is different. Make sure, again, the measuring tape is parallel to the floor. You can look in a mirror and stand with your feet hip width apart. So you're not standing with your feet super close together, because your measurement is going to be slightly larger when you're standing hip width apart, and that's going to make sure you can walk and sit down and everything in your garment. So that's how to take your measurements. If you've done this accurately and correctly, you will have a base from which to choose a size and make any alterations you need. So these are the most common measurements you need, and this is the absolute most important thing to get a good fit. The next thing we're going to talk about is ease. So there's 2 types of ease that we are going to discuss now, and that's wearing ease and design ease. When I started sewing, and in my early teen years, I wanted everything to be super tight fitting, and I did not understand ease. And what this did was create the problem of me not being able to move. So I knew I wanted 0 design ease, but what I didn't know was I wanted some wearing ease, because wearing ease is for you to be able to breathe and move your arms and sit down and go for a walk or a bike ride and everything like that. If you don't have enough wearing ease, you're not going to be able to do any of these things comfortably. If you look at the top I'm wearing, I don't have a lot of ease at the bust line, but I have a lot of ease at the waist, because this is kind of an A-line shape. That means I have a lot of design ease. So because the garment has this shape, that creates ease. To calculate, to know how much ease there is, I could measure the waist of this top and see that measurement, and then measure my waist on my body, and the difference between those 2 measurements is the amount of ease in this garment. You can also do the same by measuring a pattern piece. So measuring at the waist, for example, on all your waist pattern pieces, and see the measurement there and compare it to your body measurement. So what we have to be mindful of is how much ease do we want to have in a garment, and how much ease is there intended to be in the garment, in the pattern. So to understand how much ease you like in a garment, you can look at the things you have in your wardrobe. So now that you have your bust, waist and hip measurements, seat measurements, you can compare that to things you already own. So tops, dresses, trousers, skirts, everything you have in your wardrobe, compare it to these measurements if you want to know how much ease there is. And oftentimes it's a lot more than we think it's going to be. So in a dress, for example, even if it's kind of figure hugging, if it's a woven fabric, it's going to be bigger than your body measurements. If it's a jacket or coat, for example, it's going to have a lot more ease because it also needs to fit the other garments underneath. Okay, now you have a basic understanding of ease and you also have your measurements. So now you are equipped to choose a size as your starting point. So the first thing you have to do is look at the design. Is this garment oversized? Is it very form-fitting? Is it supposed to have some drape or something that makes the garment have a lot more fabric in some areas or not? And this is going to tell you if you are on the higher end of the ease or lower end of ease. So do you have a lot of ease in this garment or not a lot at all, or even negative ease? And you can compare to other garments you already have and like, as I said before, or you can go by some general idea of tighter fitting might be just 2 to 4 centimeters of wearing ease, and a jacket might have 12, 15, 20 centimeters of ease, or even more if it's oversized and kind of depends on the design. So when you know this, you want to look at the measurements, the body measurements for this pattern, and see where your measurements fall on this chart. Usually you don't fit straight into one of these sizes. So maybe you're a size something at the bust and at the hip, but the waist is a different size, and that's completely normal. A pattern is not going to fit everyone right out of the packet. If it does, you're really lucky, but it might not fit for any pattern company, but just a few of them. I usually circle, like I'm a size this and this at the bust, this and this at the waist, this and this at the seat. And if the pattern has a recommendation, like choose the size that's closest to your bust. This is something I always write in my patterns. But if it's not, then see where most of the shape is, or this design is most dependent on this measurement. So for a circle skirt, for example, the waist is going to be the most important measurement, and you should choose a size based on your waist measurement. For a pencil skirt, maybe the hip is going to be the most important measurement, or you could choose the waist and then grade out at the hip. And for this top I'm wearing, for example, the bust is going to be the most important. If you have a sort of fit and flare coat, the bust is going to be most important, because if it's flared, the seat measurement is not going to be as important. So kind of try to find where the design is most dependent on the measurement. And I can make more like actual examples of how to do this. But as a general idea, it's easier to fit the waist and the hip than the bust. So if the design is dependent on the bust, so any blouse, a lot of dresses and things like that, the bust is going to be the size you want to choose. For skirts, a lot of the time you can choose your waist. And for trousers, it can also be best to choose the waist, because it's easier if you have a lot of things happening at the waist. So for example, you have a fly and pockets and some kind of waistband, then it's easier to choose the waist size and then change at the hips where there's not as much going on. Now that you have identified which size is closest to your measurement and the size that is most important for this design, then you can go on to check the ease. Sometimes we have a lot of finished garment measurements on the actual pattern. Sometimes there are just 2 or 3 measurements, but usually bust, waist, hip is on there, depending on the actual garment, of course. So let's say we have a blouse of some sort. You have the bust measurement for how to choose the size from the pattern designer. They say if you have this bust measurement, you're going to choose this size. And then you check the finished garment measurement and you discover, oh, this is 12 centimeters of ease, and that's not something I enjoy. Then you might want to go down a size or 2 if you notice for this particular kind of design, this shirt or whatever, I don't want 12 centimeters of ease. I'm more comfortable with 6 centimeters. Then you have to see which size has 6 centimeters ease compared to your body. And this is where you can get the fit that's good for you. So if you go by the measurements from the pattern designer and just choose the size they suggest, you will get the vision from the pattern designer, but it's not necessarily your vision of how this kind of garment should fit. For example, I like if there's a tight fitting bodice on a dress, for example, I want very little ease, almost nothing at the waist. But some people, they want ease all the time. It's really individual, is what I'm trying to say. And it can be a really good idea to experiment with ease and to check the garments you already have and discover how much ease is in them. You have chosen a size, and now it's time to decide, do you need to grade between sizes or not? So if you have a thick and flare dress, as my example now, if you really like tight fitting bodies and the skirt has a lot of width and that's something you like, but your measurements are not like super straight, so they fit into one particular size, you might be still okay without any adjustments. So sometimes you don't need to make adjustments, and that's also something you have to learn and get used to, like when you need and when you don't need. Some of the most common adjustments that you would need to make almost every time are length adjustments. So if you know that you are a lot shorter than average or taller, or you have long legs or a long torso, or yeah, anything like that, and most people do. Most people need to do some kind of length adjustments, and depending on the design, of course, sometimes you don't need it. That's something I'm going to cover in my next video. So if you have any questions about what I went through today, and if you have any questions about length adjustments in any way, please let me know in the comments below.